Alrighty, so hello everyone to all of our viewers. Thank you for joining us as we continue the PAWS Mental Health and Wellness webinar series. For those of you that don't know what PAWS stands for, it stands for Project Aware Wildcats, and we are in association with the Johns Hopkins Center for Indigenous Health. But before we get to the objectives and all the things that we do as a team, we'd like to welcome you first and just announce that today we will be beginning the second session of this webinar series. In the second session, we will be covering peer interactions, specifically friendships, and sort of how to navigate the nuances of those relationships, especially as we begin this new school year. So for parents, we want to present you this information to help you be more mindful with helping your kids to develop these skills, to help them make better decisions for themselves and really determine what kind of friends they want to surround themselves with. And for any youth that are watching, we just want to dedicate this information to you so that you can take it in and really consider what information fits best in your life. But, towards the end of this presentation, we will also be covering how, the different types of factors that can influence how we build, because essentially, friendships and go hand in hand. There is a sense of reciprocity in that dynamic, and we'll sort of assess, the complexity of, in some sense, with this presentation. And so, with that, we'll go on to the next slide. Thank you. And so, just to make sure everyone has some familiarity with their team, we'll go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves. So, we'll begin with Shannon.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Shannon Archuleta. I'm a research associate with Johns Hopkins and help to manage the PAWS project group with these wonderful people. So I'm so pleased to be here with you all tonight. I will pass it over to Ty.
Good morning or good evening. Sha'e Kiani Nishla, Tutnez Etni Bishichin, Nas Dijitampahan Dishiche Ishihan Dishinella. My name is Tylea Town. I am a research program assistant with Trinley Johns Hopkins. I specifically work on the PAWS program with some familiar faces here as well. And I hope you guys take a few things away from our webinar this evening. And then I'll give it to Pam. Noah.
Hi, yat e Pamela Guyana Shed na king in the slon clashe bashin. My desk is need a chanela to and a dashiche. I'll coach in the debt. I'll call John Hopkins Center for Indigenous Health in Nalnish. I work here at the Center for Indigenous Health with John Hopkins as a research program assistant, and I'm glad to be here with you guys. I'll go ahead and pass it on to Cody.
Nate şeyan mayriş gizninçle tabanı başı çin tanızdan daşı çey taçı daşına ara Korea de şia bakıcı gayı otunas da naşa. I attended a college in my year four as a senior, graduating my bachelor's in psychology. I've been with the center for about 8 months now, and I'm one of the research program assistants here with the Project PAWS as well, delivering a bunch of the service programs that we do with Chinle Unified School District. Yeah.
Alrighty, thank you, everyone. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Wait, before we do that, we'd also like to introduce Kristen, but she unfortunately was unable to make it for this session. But Kristen is one of our team leaders, and her position is the mental health program specialist for the PAWS team, and she is from the Chinle, Arizona area. But hopefully next session she'll join us. And without without further ado, my name is Tanya. I am a fellow with the center, and I've been here since August of last year, so coming up just about a year now. And yeah, I'm from Gallup, New Mexico, but I work with the Chinley PAWS team in addition to the teen pregnancy prevention team with the Johns Hopkins Center. But yes, very nice to meet you all. As far as my clans, Kia Ani Nishlan, Twadajini Bashashin, Hatsoa Patani Dashanilla. But yes, very excited to get this information out to you guys and, get to know you all. So, for those of you who have yet to hear about Project Aware Wildcats, this is essentially a community and service-based project that was developed from the collaboration between the Chinle Unified School District, the Johns Hopkins Center for Indigenous Health, the Indian Health Services, and the Navajo Nation Department of Education. And so the primary purpose of this work is to work with the Chinle area and the community members of that area to develop sustainable programs and infrastructures for school-based mental health programs and services. And so through these efforts, we want to ensure that school-aged youth and their families and the wider community have access to appropriate and effective mental health and wellness opportunities. So this is an example of one of those initiatives with a webinar. We want to make this as accessible as possible with those who are unable to make our in-person sessions. And, part of that was, offering this as a Zoom option. So thank you. Next slide, please. And so to begin our presentation, like said before, we will be touching on the dynamics of friendships. And what we really want to get at with this session is to how to really define what that means for you and define what kind of friends you want in your life and really determine if your current friends fit the criteria of what suits you best. And so can we move on to the next slide? For the flow of the session, we will be covering the categorization of these friendship dynamics. And so for the first section, we'll be going over the green flags of friendships. Thereafter, we'll be defining what acquaintances are and what they can look like, what they commonly look like. And then after that, we'll go into what are ops. And those of you who aren't up to date on like Gen Z terminology, ops is essentially an abbreviation for the word opposite. And what we mean by that is just people who may not necessarily be our friends and we can have some negative experiences with them, but they aren't to the extent of bullying per se, but they can, you know, bobble back and forth on that threshold. But before we go more into that, we'll go into these other sessions. And so with the last session, we'll go over what bullies are. And to finish off everything, we'll go into a more cultural perspective, the Diné perspective on how friendships can be cultivated and how that dynamic ties in with our households. So with that, we'll go into what makes a good friend. So essentially knowing the qualities of a good friendship versus the signs of toxic behaviors is important because it will help you be more selective of the friendships you want to pursue and those that you want to avoid. And so for having this wisdom, we think that it can also help you pull back from relationships that are not very good for you. They don't really promote your well-being to the fullest extent that you deserve. And so with that, we kind of wanted to go over what good friendships kind of compose of for the most part. So essentially, for the first section, good friends promote positive feelings. Positive feelings in this case can essentially is like people who constantly nourish you and enrich your life. So that can look like, them giving you compliments, and words of encouragement, things that just really make you feel good about yourself and build your self-esteem. And they really push you to do your best and be positive and not feel so down on yourself. And with good friends also comes a system of support. These good friends are there for you when you need them, and they're there to offer, words of encouragement, aforementioned, or, just like a listening ear. And, with that, we also consider good friends to be people who um, embrace differences between the both of you. So, ultimately, no one is going to have the exact same interests. It's inevitable that differences are going to come up. But what makes a good friend is that the differences don't break the friendship. If a difference arises and like there's maybe some tension with a liking to a certain like subject or a certain type of music or something, a certain type of artist, that won't be the call for the end of the friendship necessarily. The differences in sharing that experience are going to be embraced. And you both bond over those differences usually. And with all of that, these uh, these characteristics also encompass what loyal friends are. Um, so, loyalty in this case will also look like friends who act with love and kindness and positive intention. And so that kind of goes back to how these good friends promote these positive feelings and a system of support for you. You can rely on them, and they're not just there for the good times, but they support you through like your most challenging times. And they can offer support through like certain I guess love languages you can say. So these are just modes of where you feel supported. And everyone has these different love languages. And then with good friends, they make the effort to really determine how you like to be supported as a person too. Um, and so with good friends, they also have empathy and compassion, and they also um, have the confidence to apologize. So that goes with that last section with differences are embraced. If a conflict comes about and there's tension that also comes about, the uncertainty is embraced, and good friends take the initiative to apologize for any behaviors or tension that they need to take accountability for when things go wrong. And they also acknowledge that um, the instances in which you have upset them too. So there's like an equal exchange of communication with that. And so with that, we'll move on to our next session, or next section concerning acquaintances. So acquaintances, these are kind of similar to friends, but in a way that's not it doesn't have the emotional depth that you really experience with good close friendships. Acquaintances are essentially individuals who have like a basic level of familiarity with you, but they don't necessarily, you tend to not necessarily seek them out as like a first option in the social setting. There's some hesitancy with like, oh, will they, you know, be receptive to, my approach to wanting to hang out or something. Whereas like, with good friends, there is there's not that much hesitancy usually. Um, and with acquaintances, they tend to really come up in settings of school, work, or social events. And the exchange of greetings is usually pretty casual, and it usually involves some small talk. So, like, how are you doing? What have you been up to? Just very surface level conversations. Um, and that, ties to the superficial connection. And it's also often, if it kind of progresses, it also often is limited to common hobbies or activities. And with acquaintances, they usually tend to come up a little bit more as youth get older, usually within like junior high, middle school, or high school. And yes, next we'll go on to like, I know this sounds a little redundant to like friendships, but in the next slide we'll cover like how they really differentiate. We'll provide a visual. So next slide, please. So we wanted to offer this visual to really, you know, demonstrate the differences between friends and acquaintances and really help you determine like where you determine where you set that threshold to be. So with friends, like we said, there is usually a deeper emotional bond. You tend to have deeper conversations with this type of bond, and the interactions you guys have are happen usually like on a regular basis. Um, and there is this desire to spend time with one another, and you often have more shared experiences that aren't just limited to common hobbies or activities. There may be some similar backgrounds that really promote the emotional depth of like good friendships. And although good friendships may, be influenced by distance, let's say you have a good friend who lives several hundreds of miles away. Um, Even though you can't have that regular interaction like that's stated on this slide, the thing that really makes this a good friendship that you should be looking for is the emotional depth that you feel with that person. If you feel like you can confide in them in challenging times and you don't have this intense hesitancy to do so, then that's usually a good indicator that that's someone who you can consider a good friend. And in comparison to like these characteristics of what makes a good friend, there is acquaintances. And so with acquaintances, unlike the deeper emotional bond that you usually feel with friends, the emotional bond with acquaintances is usually not there or is not as deep. You tend to stick to the superficial knowledge of one another or like conversations, like maybe they'll know your favorite color by chance, or they'll know like what kind of classes you take, what kind of sports you play. Um, but with that, there's limited interaction because of that unfamiliarity with each other's background and like the lack of emotional depth that you guys share. And with acquaintances, there's usually not as much of a desire to spend time with this other person. There's like a sense of, I guess you can think of it as a boundary. You don't feel like too inclined sometimes, or you feel like there's this hesitancy to really reach out. And with that, there comes limited shared experiences. But a thing to note about acquaintances is that, even though they may not feel as close of a friend at that moment, there's always the option to really push them to be a closer friend, and that's really up to you on like what you value with friendships and if you really consider this person, if you can see this person becoming a good friend of yours. But we just wanted to highlight the differences between friends and acquaintances because this can become relatively nuanced. But with that, thank you, and we'll go on to the next slide.
Yeah, so continuing on, who are bullies? So within this one, we begin to understand common characteristics. If someone creates an ongoing situation where you do feel unsafe or threatened, further adding, often trying to assert their power over you through intimidation tactics, and then furthering our understandings with behavior examples. So we did separate this into two, starting with elementary and then going into middle school and high school. Starting with the elementary school behavior examples, some of it could be negative nitpicking or negative comments. Another is hitting, shoving, kicking, or taking someone's belongings. And then as we progress forward, middle school and high school, so the development of cliques or groups that explicitly exclude you, the body shaming of another individual, a more intense language use toward a specific individual, humiliating or spreading rumors about another individual, and lastly, using technology to communicate negative remarks, perspectives, or thoughts.
Okay, so now let's talk about ops. So in some communities, the term ops refers to someone who's acting as your opposition or someone who might have a smile in their face but can work against you behind your back. So an op is different from an obvious bully because they can look like a friend, at least on the surface. They might hang out with you, share jokes or even support you in certain moments, but their overall behavior chips away at your trust and self-esteem. So ops can be harder to spot because the relationship isn't always negative, it's mixed. So sometimes they're kind and other times they're undermining you. And here's the thing. If you leave interactions with someone feeling anxious, insecure, or emotionally drained, that's worth paying attention to. Because true friends should make you feel respected, safe, and valued. If they don't, you might be dealing with an op. So healthy friendship should leave you feeling safe, respected, and valued. If you constantly feel anxious, judged, or drained, that is a sign that something is off. So, how do you know if someone is being an op towards you? There are some red flags to watch for. So, they might disguise hurtful comments as jokes, saying, I'm just being honest with you. But honesty without kindness is often just cruelty. They might push you to do things you're not comfortable with or use manipulation to get their way. Ops often find ways to make you the punchline, meaning putting you down, laughing at you, or encouraging others to join in. They may exclude you on purpose to send a message. Another big one is that they only show up when they need something from you, but then they're missing in action when you need the support personally. So I would suggest paying attention to how you feel around them. If you notice that you're walking on eggshells or second guessing yourself a lot of those are emotional clues that the relationship might not be as healthy as it should be.
Now, going forward, what to do if you ever experience a disagreement with a friend. So, we'll start first with having honest conversations, talking to the other person about their behavior or their behaviors and how they made you feel. Voicing boundaries on topics you want to limit, so using a lot of I feel sentences and statements. Next, practicing your voice, recognize and understand that your feelings and needs are valid. Second, recognize what kind of boundaries you want and need. Third, practice using I statements and saying no. Fourth, challenge your negative self talk and build confidence. And then going to the last one, recognizing a support system of people who can encourage and practice tough talks with. And then going into the last one, standing up for yourself. So there are different types of communications. There's passive communication, aggressive communication, passive aggressive communication, and assertive communication. Going into the next slide. So with this one, what to do if you should ever experience bullying? We'll start first with talk to a trusted adult. So determine the best time for having a conversation. Not all pinpoints are going to add up, but aim for a time with the least distraction. Always be honest about the behaviors and how they make you feel. Be clear about how you are wanting to seek their help or guidance for addressing the bullying. Going into the next one, distancing self from the bully. So giving no reaction or very little reaction to their behaviors. Walking away when approached or sitting in separate spaces. Lastly, don't internalize their behaviors might make you feel bad, but they need to change, not you.
So with that, we just wanted to, really provide this information for you all to begin considering what kind of friendships are present in your life and which ones you want in the future. And with that, we believe that like you deserve to be surrounded by friends who love and respect you just as much as you do with them. You're essentially being the kind of friend that you want, and we want to help you develop um, that type of thinking so that you can employ that into your own life and really create this sense of reciprocity with those around you, whether that just be, you know, even just like your family with like cousins. There's still a sense of friendship with family members in that too. And these are very versatile skills, and we want you to really begin to think and contemplate about how these can really play into your life. And you know, with friendships, sometimes it it's like a trial and error. It's a process of learning, especially because, you know, you have to really consider what kind of values you have as an individual. But, you know, don't be discouraged if like, you know, one day it doesn't feel like you really got to socialize as well as you thought you'd or as well as you'd hope. And let's say you came in with the intention to go to an event and like make a new friend, but then you come out with not making as close of a connection as you desired. So with that, we wanted to remind you that like every day is a new day, and you can make changes wherever and whenever you want, and you really just take this time for yourself when you need it. And you know, in the times that you don't really get what you set out for, you can take that as an opportunity to really reflect again on like what you want with your friendships, because when you're aware of like what nourishing and unhealthy friendships look like, you can be more discerning about the friends you make, essentially. And so the part you play really does influence the quality of your friendships. Letting people mistreat you is a fuel for unhealthy relationships. And if you don't like the way friends are treating you, it's important to be able to speak up and practice that. Practice assertive communication, where, you know, the perspective you can take with assertive communication is that you're acknowledging that your rights matter in that situation, but you're also being holding an equal ground for the other person, where you um, create a space where they can like vocalize their own thoughts in that. So it's important to speak up and just be able to practice that skill, because it can really become useful not only with school, but like in the future with like your career or future jobs and other aspirations. Communication is very important with friendships. And, you know, with that, with communication also comes setting clear boundaries and, you know, standing up for yourself so that you can yield better relationships in your life. And so with that, we'll go on to our Dana perspective on friendships.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go on with the different perspectives of friendships. So it is taught by our elders that we take each day as a new journey in our lives. So as a new journey in our lives, it starts in the early dawn. Also, we also follow the southerly path direction of the sun. Shepik Eko Asan Odath, the journey of the wellness in the pathway of the sun. And the meanings, the significance to this word, Shepik Echo, is the journey of the wellness in the pathway of the sun. Asa is one's pathway into the old age. Oda is one's daily personal journey. So every day we wake up every morning, and every day is not the same as yesterday. So always remember that the things that you're going through in your daily journeys, whether it's positive or negative, you have a new day to make those changes. So today is a new day. Tomorrow's going to be a new day. Yesterday's in the past, so let's leave yesterday in the past. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Looking within yourself. These are four concepts that we are taught. I'm not sure if most of you may hear this from your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpas when, as they're, as we're going in our everyday journeys, we're leaving, if we're going out of town, we're going to school, we're going on a trip, or, doing something um, on our daily journeys. One of the four concepts is adehani, adaahaya, adahodizin, aro adaahasin. Adehani, starting from the first self-identity, knowing your roots, knowing where you came from, and remembering all the teachings that you were given. So one most important thing is your self-identity, knowing your clans, being able to introduce yourself in a group setting, and then remembering the values that you were taught at home. Aro adahodis and self-respect and respecting the sacredness of yourself, remembering who you are, where you came from, and how you were taught. Most importantly, respecting and valuing the teachings that you got from the home. Remembering that the home is one's mother. The the fire is one's home. A the fire poker stick is one's grandfather. The water is one's mother. Food is one's mean of life. So those are some concepts, adahotis, and having those self-respect, respecting sacredness of yourself, because we're taught those things every day. Adahaya, self-care, going the extra mile for yourself, taking that time for yourself every day, doing your morning offering, saying your morning prayers, and then in the evening time, taking that time for yourself and saying thanks for the day that you have had and the journey that you were able to travel on that day. Protecting yourself and knowing your self limits and boundaries, being able to recognize when you're not in a state of emotional or mental state of mind, being able to recognize the harmful elements around you. Go ahead to the next slide. So with that being said, there are elements in our daily journeys that we encounter. We always call them, as in traditional ways, is a self-infliction. When we are in a self-infliction of negative energies, of negative influences, that puts us in a position to be traveling against the pathway of the sun. Shadachiko, meaning the opposite direction of a sun. And this direction is not harmonious. This is not the path of wellness. In this direction, all negative moves, starting in the home, causing negativity. So when we go in that path, that's the pathway against the sun, it will cause poverty, forms of neglect in the present home, whether it means that we become resistant to the things that we were doing before, like our chores, our homework, taking time for ourselves. In the Navajo word, it's called tehe'e. Tehe'e is a form of poverty, whether or not it's financial, whether or not it's in the home, whether or not it's within ourselves. And that causes sibling relationships, influence and perception of what is acceptable behavior in the future. So a lot of times when we feel like, our brothers, our sisters, our friends, our peers are, nitpicking at us, treating us anything other than in a positive energy, we feel like that's normal. We feel like that's, oh, hey, I could be treated like that, or I get treated like that at home. So why not, just continue to be this person? It also causes a lack of wellness and it causes emphasis of developing self-defensive mechanisms. We start to become violent and we start to become retaliative. In the Navajo word, is what we start to generate as relationships within the home, within our friends, and within our communities. That's what we become to be known as. And then we start to be known as having a little motivation, lack of self-discipline, unaware of our needs for accountability. So the net perspectives, practice of self-reflection on the homestead, recognizing and understanding when things in the home are not in balance and harmony. Understanding that we need to be the leaders of ourselves. Being a leader to intense self-reverence in the family will carry on to our siblings, our families, and will induce the elders' teachings. Healthy behaviors can be started within the home. Going out in the morning and starting our morning in the early dawn, going out in the morning and our evenings to pray, going out to run, walk in the morning or evenings is a form of self-care. Values and goals. Okay, values and goals for a sacred home. These are just some tips that you can think about as we were taught by our elders, our parents, our caregivers, whoever was there for us as we were growing up. And remembering to try to use these key points in the home as we try to go on our daily journeys. Remembering to only bring into the home things that provide harmony and wholeness and balance. Best thoughts, plans, teaching, and living ina are kept within the family. And respect the home's fire. The fire stick of Hunishkish, water, food, and use of these elements prayerfully, for they are our relatives. Keep the home clean, keep trash junk away from the home, and keep pets in their proper places. By following these steps and continuing to keep these techniques within our home, it will bring harmony and balance. We'll have a proper kinship and we'll have proper relationships with positive energies throughout our daily journeys. And I think that's pretty much.
So we just want to end this by reminding everyone that you are never alone when you are dealing with toxic friendships, bullying, or mental health struggles. Sometimes just having a safe place to talk things through makes all the difference. For our community here in Chinle and across the Navajo Nation, we have local resources like traditional and behavioral health services and crisis line, including us here at PAWS. For more information, you can scan our QR code for local resources that are provided just for you. And remember, you do not have to wait until things really get bad to reach out. These resources are here for prevention as well. Sometimes talking to someone early can help you spot patterns like an unhealthy friendship before they take a toll on your mental health.
So with that, we just wanted to say thank you for joining us with this session of our webinar series. As you can see, friendships are very complex. They can be, especially when you take into consideration the influence of in this context with friendships also includes assessing yourself and really determining if you're in a state that is harmonious. That way you can, you know, dis disperse that and that positive energy to others that you're trying to build good relationships with. And that also comes from the home, the type of home you foster, whether that be in the home or just outside the home, like Pam mentioned, cleaning up around the house, keeping your space clean. That also transitions to how you keep your mind clean and organized, and that way you can think more thoroughly and holistically and make better decisions for yourself. And so, with that, we'd like to say a kahat, and we hope that you are able to take some skills from this session and employ it into your own life so that you can make better decisions for yourself if you are youth and starting this new school year, or if you're a parent, you can help start these conversations with within the home, or if you're a grandparent, you can talk to, your grandkids about this, or if you're just one of the guardians in the household, it's very important to hold these conversations so that, your youth are able to become uh, influential people in the future and they can lead abundant lives as they progress into adulthood. So, yeah, thank you.
One thing, oh, sorry. One thing that I also wanted to touch on is that